Hello, welcome to Alive to Thrive OT. I'm Lauren Lyman.
And I'm Tracy Schnabel.
And today we are going to be talking about a very important topic, how to prevent child abuse and child trafficking. So this is something that's kind of been floating around on Facebook for the past couple months. It's gotten a lot more attention. It's a very important topic, and there are things that we can be doing to help other people. So I think it's important that we all know what these things are, but also, God forbid, preventing it in our own families. So before we get started, we're two occupational therapists who noticed a gap in the healthcare system, primarily in prevention, health maintenance, mental health, and nutrition. So we have done all the research for you. We've become very knowledgeable in the past couple years, and we want to share that with you so you don't have to do all that work. So before we get started, we have a legal disclaimer. This podcast is for informational purposes only. So if you do have a specific medical concern, please consult with your medical provider. We do not have any warranties or representation, so please proceed at your own risk. And if you do have a medical emergency, call 911 immediately. So Tracy, let's talk about trafficking and abuse.
Okay, so I know this is something that a lot of people feel uncomfortable talking about, and they probably don't want to really address it with kids so young. But as one of our other videos that talked about sexual abuse and trauma, I think one of the best ways to combat that is to talk about it and to talk about it with each other and with our children, so that they're not easily manipulated by a sexual abuser or a trafficker.
Yeah, I think it's become taboo to talk about sex in general in this culture. But if we're not talking about it, then, and we're not being proactive, then what if our child, God forbid, or someone we know, someone we love, is encountered with this situation? They don't know what to do because, you know, we don't talk about it, you know, and then, right. or, you know, they are getting abused and they want to keep it a secret because, well, we're not supposed to talk about that. So right. we want to trudge past the discomfort and make it okay to talk about these things.
Right, like sexual health is a part of our everyday living, and so we should be talking about it with our kids and with each other, and like Lauren said, it's shamed, so that kind of prevents us from being able to feel comfortable with ourselves and with other people. So today we're going to talk about 7 ways to talk with your children to prevent abuse.
Real quick, I also want to throw in a side note here that this is an uncomfortable topic, and it's a sensitive one for anyone who's a parent, especially because it's your job to protect your child, right? So if something happens to your child, instantly you blame yourself. So I just want to say that sometimes we can't control everything, right? Like my kid gets hurt sometimes and I didn't prevent it. You know, that happens, and that can happen emotionally and sexually as well. So if something does happen to your child, it is not necessarily your fault, and it's not something that maybe you could have prevented. These are tips to help you prevent these things, but they're not 100% foolproof. We all have our own personalities and we all make our own choices, and sometimes manipulation is so strong that there's nothing that you can do to prevent it. So I just want to throw that out there. This is not a blame game by any means. These are ways that you can help make sure that your child has the least chance possible of, you know, trafficking and abuse happening to them.
And the first one is, I added this one on, is teaching them emotions, about their emotions, so that they're more in tune with their self. So sometimes we don't really teach emotions. I know as a child, like I was taught to, don't cry, you know, if I was angry, don't throw a tantrum, Tracy, you know, like it's just, you're taught to stuff how you feel. And then as an adult, sometimes I don't even know how I feel. I don't even know when I'm getting angry, or I don't even know if I'm sad, because I've been told so many times to suppress. So I think one of the major empowerment things we can do for our kids is teaching them emotions, how to identify them. So I know what Lauren does with her son is, you know, are you having a big emotion right now? Are you sad? Are, you know, talking to them, are you upset? So that they become in tune and start recognizing their own emotions, to empower them to know when they're uncomfortable, to know when they're sad. So that's the number one thing that I just kind of added on here.
And that can be something tricky to navigate because you don't want them walking all over you or throwing and breaking things either, right? So there needs to be a balance. But we do have a video on social emotional learning, so check that out, and that can kind of walk you through how to identify and deal with emotions appropriately.
And there's a lot of videos online too that talk to kids about their emotions. And then Mr. Rogers is very good at that as well. Number 2 is consent. Teaching your children consent. And this is another thing that Lauren does with her child is, I think also as a child I was told, hug Uncle Bobby, or like go hug Auntie whatever, and that's not even my answer, or go do this. And teaching kids that and I know this to some parents are going to be like, oh, this is foo-foo, but it's not, because think about it. We're taught that we have to make other people feel comfortable, but not to respect our own boundaries and our own comfort level. So you can teach children, like, you could wave goodbye or you could give a hug, let it be their option, because we're also teaching them we have natural instincts, gut instincts that tell us whether, someone's okay or not. And we're teaching the kids to ignore that. And sometimes we don't even know, what's going on with our own family members or friends of the family. A lot of times, I hate to say this, but it's the truth. A lot of friends of mine that I know and from research I've done is a lot of times the person to do the sexual perpetration sometimes is somebody that somebody in the family.
Most of the time, yeah.
Yeah, a friend. So let the child guide what they're comfortable with, because you might not know. They might know better than you.
Right. And if it's someone they trust, someone that you've told, go hug this person, go do this, we, like Tracy said, we're so ingrained in this culture. We want to make other people feel comfortable. We don't want any discomfort in the room. So if your kid doesn't want to hug someone, we're like, go, like force them, like don't embarrass me kind of thing, or don't make that person feel bad. So then it's kind of training them like, okay, I have to do things that I don't want to do so that other people don't feel bad. And, self-care is number 1. We need to take care of ourselves above everything else. And that's not to say we're disrespecting other people. I think other people just need to understand that, hey, don't take it personally. He just didn't feel like hugging you today, or maybe he's having an off day, or maybe he's just not comfortable, and that's okay. And we take everything so personally in our culture, so we want to like appease everybody, but really identifying that it's more important to be secure in yourself and confident, and then that can better foster those relationships rather than forcing.
Yeah, so that's a big one, even though it's counterculture, and I really like that one. It's really teaching a child to respect how they feel. So it expands upon teach them the emotions, and then teach them how to respect their own emotions, because we're taught so much to just not respect how we feel, and that's not right.
And you can discuss that with family members and say what you're doing and why you're doing it too, so that they do feel more comfortable and not offended.
Yeah, and then they can go ahead and teach other people that, and then we could have a world of people that are aware and conscious. And see, with victims, a lot of times they end up taking advantage that people aren't in tune with these things, and that's how they are able to be manipulated. So you're teaching your child to not be easily manipulated, in essence, is what these tips are doing.
And if you're sitting here watching being like, my grandma's not going to sexually assault my child, that's not what we're saying. But we're saying that if you teach the concept of I have to sacrifice my own comfort and emotions for other people, you're teaching them a behavior. And then they're going to go and apply that behavior to other scenarios. So maybe when they're 20 years old then, and they're in an abusive relationship, and they don't see anything wrong with it, or they become a victim and they can't get out, or they're not acknowledging that their feelings are important because of those lessons that were taught. So I'm not saying that anyone in your family is going to do anything, but we want to make sure that we're establishing those lessons early on in life so that they can apply them elsewhere.
Yeah, and abusers often teach you to ignore your own feelings and to feel sorry for them and to do what they want and to please them.
They're manipulative.
Yeah, if you establish that you are important and you need to listen to your needs, then it's not as easy for them to do that to the child. So, and then the next one is like making sure that the child feels autonomous. So you can do this by teaching them to make decisions so that they're not so complacent, because sometimes I think we teach kids like, listen to, especially like I think in my generation, you listen to the adult because I said so, and you don't really allow the child to make their own decisions. So then again, you're setting them up to be easily manipulated or able to be a follower or able to be controlled, almost like robotic type thinking, like, well, this person tells me what to do and they're an authority, so that's what I do. So teaching your child, like, what do you know, giving them choices for eating. I mean, obviously you don't want to be like, do you want junk food or do you want unhealthy, but give them choices, healthy choices.
And open-ended questions are not great, because then they can say whatever they want. What do you want for dinner? Ice cream. You know, no, you don't want to do that. But like, you know, do you want to wear your blue pajamas or your red pajamas tonight? Do you want to, during free time or whatever, do you want to do a puzzle or read a book? You know, just so that they're feeling like their voice matters, that they have a say in what goes on in their life. So when they're kids, you know, don't give them open-ended questions. You still are in control, but you're teaching them that they have choices and they can make choices for themselves.
Yeah, and then it makes them more independent and autonomous and less able to be manipulated, because again, then they'll be more in tune with who they are, their feelings, and who they are and what they want. Okay. Another one is anatomy. So Lauren was also talking to me about how she teaches her son, you know, like, this is your penis, and like we talk to them about, like, if it was a female, this is a vagina. Like, we teach them like this, what is this is a nose, you know, these are your knees, this is your shoulder, this is your hands. But you don't teach like sexual body parts, probably because of the discomfort in our society with even talking about body parts. Why should we be uncomfortable talking about body parts? They're natural things. And then we're giving them, empowering them with words so that they can tell you if somebody is touching them. Like, how, if they don't even know what their body parts are called, they're not going to be able to come to you and say, somebody touched me here, you know, or to talk about, you know, their own body. So we need to empower them with that. So it includes, you know, sexual anatomy,
and we're not saying you have to teach a 3-year-old what sex is or what certain things are, or don't let a person do X, Y, and Z. You don't want to overwhelm them with information, but there is a balance with that too. So you want to use scientifically appropriate words. So you don't want to call, you know, breasts boobies, because that's a cute, fun word, you know. Then it makes, oh, boobies, that's funny, you know. And then, oh, someone touched my boobies, that's funny. You don't want to have that like fun, you know, airy, like it's okay connotation added to it either. But you also don't want to shame them for touching themselves, because exploration is how kids learn. You know, we explore with our senses, right? Touch is a sense. So, you know, there are times and places that are appropriate to do that, but you know, you don't want to shame them for being curious, but you also don't want to promote like, oh, it's cute and funny either. So you have to find that balance, because if they are shamed, like, oh, we don't talk about this, you know, we don't say this in our house, we're not allowed to talk about these things, we're not allowed to touch or do or whatever, then when somebody outside the home or inside the home, whatever, when somebody goes and does something inappropriate, they're ashamed, because not only are they not supposed to touch themselves or talk about it, they feel like, well, when someone else does it, I'm not supposed to talk about it either. So then they have this sense of shame around it, and they're not going to tell you when something happens.
Yeah, so just kind of destigmatizing these things so that we can have open communication with our children. And then another suggestion is to build their self-esteem, because a lot of times children and adults that have low self-worth or low self-esteem will also be able to be manipulated further. So always use like positive reinforcement with your children, encourage them to follow their interests along with the same like decision making, have them involved in things, you know, where they can really excel and be confident in themselves, and always be encouraging to them so they have a really positive positive self-image. So again, they're not easily manipulated, because sexual traffickers and sexual abusers will go after somebody that does not have that confidence. And so we really want to build our children's self-worth and confidence so that they, again, don't feel that they deserve to be treated in any way.
Or if they're just seeking love and attention that they're not getting elsewhere.
Yeah. So yeah, just make sure, even if I know some of us, hugging and showing affection in the family was not that promoted, but like making sure within what's comfortable for your child to show them affection. Is it okay if I give you a hug? Is it okay if I give you a kiss? I love you so much, just making sure that you're making sure that child has like that healthy attachment and that confidence in themselves by creating healthy relationships with them, even if it's something you haven't had. And if you haven't had it, I would recommend, maybe going to counseling and working on that.
Because things are cyclical. Things are cyclical. So if you may not even realize, because subconsciously you've been programmed to believe certain things about yourself. So you may not even realize that you're passing these on to your kids. You may be the most loving parent in the world, but there are still some things that you're doing here and there that are instilling this programming in them, and then the cycle continues. So it's really important to be aware of your own problems. You can't escape what happened to you as a child or the way you were raised. You want to address those issues so that you can break that cycle. And then another thing I wanted to mention is kids misbehave. Kids test boundaries. That is bad behavior. That is not a bad child or a bad personality. So be careful with the verbiage that you're using. You don't want to say, "What's wrong with you? Why would you do that?" Like, that's a horrible thing to say to someone. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
But I hear that so often, and some people just instinctually say it. Like, they get mad, your kid drew all over the wall in permanent marker. What's wrong with you? No, you acknowledge the behavior is bad. There's nothing wrong with the child. It's the behavior. So just like small tweaks in ways that you punish your child, because obviously we need boundaries, just the way that you're establishing those boundaries is important.
Yeah. And then the next one is making sure, and Lauren touched on this, that there's no secrets. So telling your child that there should be no secret between the parent and your child, that they should be able to tell you anything, and that, if another adult tells them to keep a secret, that they don't need to do that, because that's another tool that a sexual abuser uses. Like, you can't tell anyone, this is just between us, this is what a secret is. If your child already knows what a secret is and you've let them know that there should be no secrets, then you're empowering the child, again, not to be manipulated. And really, there should be no secrets. I mean, in general, we've kind of like accepted this in our society, that it's okay to keep secrets, and it's also okay to be secretive with like your partner and relationships. But really, if we're in a higher level of frequency of functioning, truth and honesty should be the main objective. So really, there should be no secrets, and teaching your child this early on is really creating a really good space for them to not be manipulated, but also a good way to have relationships with others. Okay, so that's the other one. And then also the last one is telling your children, that if an adult does do something to them, like does something that they're not comfortable with, touches their private parts, or does something, that it is not their fault, that it's the adult's fault. So adults, even though they are authority figures, they don't have the right to hurt you. They don't have the right to make you feel uncomfortable. So just having a conversation, with your child about boundaries, even with adults, and letting them know those things. All these things can be like difficult, but I think that they're important, and I think we can kind of grade how we do them depending on, the age of your child. I know there's a lot of children's books out there too. If you're like, Tracy, I really don't feel comfortable talking about all these things with my child, there's children books out there that you can look up and get to like start talking with them about it. The main objective of this video is just to get you to understand that it shouldn't be shameful. It should be talked about, and the best tool to prevent and protect your child from these things is to start talking to them about it and bring it into their awareness and open up that communication line and trust between you and your child.
Yeah, so it's really about fostering healthy relationships, teaching what a healthy relationship is, and keeping communication open so they feel comfortable coming to you. A lot of victim shaming happens in this country, and it has gotten a lot better in the past, I'd say maybe 20 years or so, but there still is victim shaming, and victims should never be shamed. They should never feel ashamed of anything that they've been exposed to or took part in, because I think we forget too that whether it's a child or an adult, manipulation, and you may make a decision, but if it's based on manipulation, it was not your decision. It was somebody else's decision that they forced you to make, basically. So, like Tracy said, a lot of abusers are very, very manipulative, and they make you feel guilty. So not only do you do the things that they want you to do, but then you don't tell anyone about it because you know it's not right, but you did it anyways. And then you're like, what's wrong with me? And then it starts that whole cycle all over again. So really just promoting those healthy relationships and confidence. And if you need help with any of those things, I'm a holistic health and wellness coach. So these are areas that we can address with your child. If you need, psychiatric help for yourself, for your child, that's something that you can look into also.
And I also provide Reiki. If you ever want Reiki, it's a Japanese energy technique just to help you release some of those emotions we hold in, and just to help give peace and vitality back into the body that sometimes it's damaged by different things that happen. So,
especially if things happen to you as a kid, you can heal those, especially like the sacral chakra. You can heal those energy centers so that you're not carrying that into your parenthood.
So that sums up all of the tips, and we really appreciate you being here with us, and we really hope that you take the time to use these tips with your kids. So we really want to protect our children, because this is becoming a big problem. Like she was saying, on Facebook, I've seen it on the news. I'm sure you've seen the Epstein documentaries.
It's under advertised for sure. Now that we have social media outlets, it's definitely getting out there more, but it's under advertised how severe this problem is. So please like our video and please share it. The more likes we get, the more shares we get, the more people we can reach, and the bigger impact we can have on the world. So please share this video, subscribe to our channel so you can check out our other videos, sign up for alerts. Visit us at www.facebook.com/LaurenandTracy. And like we said, email us if you have any questions, if you need help managing this with your child. If you're uncomfortable, we can talk you through it. If you want to do Reiki, whatever, just send us an email and we can help you. And then, that's it.
So we're just, again, wishing you physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. We thank you for being here and supporting us, and we'll see you next time.